Handicapper Steve here, handicapping the racing from Churchill Downs here on Saturday. It is the 6th of May 2023. It's Kentucky Derby Day from Churchill, and I'm going to look at all the stakes races, including the Kentucky Derby. But before I get on to that, remember to please follow me on Twitter at Horse Racing Kid 5 for more selections for race courses around the world. And remember to go check out my Newmarket 2000 Guineas preview. It's also another classic over in England at Newmarket, so it's a good race, a good day of racing. Quite a few stakes races here at Churchill. I think you can make some money, especially with that pick six and that late pick four also. I hope you enjoy the card because I had a very fun time deep diving here. And remember, when you go check out my Derby preview later on in this video, I go through all the horses. But we're going to look at races 4 through 12. Let's get to it right now. Starting off with the fourth race from Churchill, which is the Derby City Distaff. It's a grade 1 event going for a $750,000 purse. Race for fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and upwards. We have a field here of 6 horses going to the starting gate, positioned at the 1400-meter pole or the 7-furlong trip on the Churchill main track. My top selection, I'm going to go with the 2-horse Goodnight Olive, 2351 for me in the superfecta. 2351 Super, top selection 2-horse Goodnight Olive, 5-year-old mare by Go Zapper, Chad Brown trains, Ira Tees Jr. gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came the 8th of April, Keeneland, 7 furlongs in the seasonal reappearance in the Madison. She won by length that day, and she stalked, she got the lead, she quickened up, she got the job done. It wasn't the most impressive of her victors, but she still got the job done, coming home with a strong 98 buyer. Refreshing here to Churchill for the first time shouldn't be a problem, and I think she could improve off of that run and run another good race. 2 back in the Brews Cup Filly Mare Sprint to Keeneland, 7 furlongs 5th of November. She won by 2.5 lengths that day, and she sat back early. She really had the good turn of foot. Irad really, rode a terrific race for her to get in front. She quickened up, 101 buyer, not as fast as her ballerina, but it was still a very impressive performance there, beating Echo Zulu, who's a decent horse, and Wicked Halo is running back in this one here today. And then prior to that, the Spires, Saratoga, 28th of August, 7 furlongs in the ballerina handicap. She won by 2 3/4 lengths that day. From wide post draw, she didn't have the best beginnings, which took a little bit out of her early on for the first 16th or 8th of a mile, but she settled well after that, slowly moved her way up, wide trip, quickened up nicely at 5.5 to 1, coming home with a 102 buyer, career best. I thought that was a very good game performance there for this horse. And then 7th of August, Saratoga 6.5 and options 80, winning by 3 3/4 lengths, 98 buyer that day. She was a little bit wide and drifting that day, but I think that's because she was all by herself. Another very good run. She's definitely been on the improve since coming to the 3 to 4-year-old campaign. Started the 5-year-old campaign nicely again. I'm going to give her a massive shot on the ticket. The 3-horse Wicked Halo, I like the victory in the matron most recently at Oaklawn on the mud. She won by 3/4 lengths. She was a little bit wide and a little bit drifting that day, but she won quite nicely. Prior to that, in the Brews Cup Filly Mare Sprint, she got beat by Goodnight Olive, who was best on the day, but she was, gaining that day, but she also had a little bit of a more troubled trip than Goodnight Olive. And the Raven run, she won by 4 lengths. From a tracking trip, she won very nicely. And then when the prior race before that, she likes running on this track. She's 4 for 2 on it. She has 2 victors here by winning the Black Type Stakes over the 7 here in June, and by winning here in the 10 and after that over the mile. She ran the 8 bells last year on Derby Day, where she really had a bit of a troubled trip coming from behind, but she got there getting the 3rd place finish. But training well, second off the bench. If there's going to be a bit of a horse come from a tracking trip, it could be her. I'll use her on the ticket as a bit of an upset play behind Goodnight Olive. But to recap my selection now for the 4th from Churchill, it is the Distaff excuse me, it's the Derby City Distaff. There we go. Gonna take the 2-horse Goodnight Olive. Give kudos to the 3-horse Wicked Halo. 2351 Super, 2-3 in your multi race. Let's get to the 5th. The first stakes race on the turf of the day at Churchill is race number 5. It is the Longines Churchill Distaff Turf Mile. It's a grade 2 event going for a $500,000 purse. Race for fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and upwards. We have a field here a field of 8 horses going to the Matt Winn Turf course. The distance of ground of 1,600 meters or a mile on that Matt Winn Turf course. I want to retract a statement I said yesterday. I said that rails will be down on Friday's card for the first time all year at Churchill. Actually, no, the rails will be up at 12 feet on Friday. Today, on Saturday, the rails will be down for the first time since Arlington Million Day back in August. So they're going to be running with a fresh turf course. Something to keep in mind since putting in this new turf course, speed front end horses have been really doing wonders. You always want to be wide at Churchill even before the turf course. Even with the old turf course, always the 3-4 path was really the best spot. But I also think, like I said, you want to be forwardly paced. Closers were winning, but it wasn't as as they used to be winning on this turf course years ago. So I just want you to keep that in mind here. My top selection here in the Distaff Turf Mile, I'm going to take the 5-horse Spenderella, 5-3-7-4 in the superfecta. 5-3-7-4 Super, top selection of 5-horse Spenderella, 4-year-old fillyback Carcanite here. Grand Motion trains, Kyler Gaffleone gets to mount. This horse ran terrifically in the Del Mar Oaks at Del Mar, mile and 8th on the 20th of August. The horse won by 4 1/4 lengths, breaking from post 10 of 12. She stalked that day off, of horses, setting some really fast fractions. She got to the front and she quickened up. It was a very easy race from the 10 hole of 13. A good race back from England. Nothing bad. Refreshing here. Could be forwardly paced, which shouldn't be half bad, with a very good post draw. I think she's sitting on a very good run. 2 back in the Coronation Stakes at Ascot. 1 mile on firm ground the 17th of June. She finished second by 2 3/4 lengths that day. She stalked that day, and Spiral really had the jump on her, really quickened up nicely. Proper Group 1 filly. This horse just wasn't keeping up with her, but she ran her heart out behind her there. And then the Appalachian at Keelan, 1 mile good ground the 9th of April of 2022. She won by 1 3/4 lengths that day from a tracking position. She quickened up nicely. 90 buyer. Again, a very good race for her there. And then Here Comes the Bride at Gulfstream. 1 mile on the 9th of March. Won by 1.5 lengths. Everything her own way in the front end. And she kept going. A very good race. She's done everything right here, even in the defeat at Royal Ascot. Refreshing here. Very good post draw. 7-5. Very, very likely winner. If there's a horse that could possibly upset her, it's the 3-horse Haughty for Chad Brown. Hasn't been seen since Lake Placid, which she won by 3/4 length, setting her own pace in the front end and getting the job done. A very good race there. Prior to that, in the Belmont Derby, she just couldn't keep the 1.25 mile trip, and then won on soft ground at Penn Oaks, Penn National and the Penn Oaks very, very nicely. Her bars have been going up very nicely. She's training well pace and back to a mile. It wouldn't surprise me. I'll use her here. I think her odds might drift up if they bet Spenderella into the ground. But to recap my selection for the 5th now from Churchill, it is the Churchill Distaff Turf Mile. Going to take the 5-horse Spenderella. Give kudos to the 3-horse Haughty. 5-3-7-4 Super. 5-3 in your multi-race. Let's get to the 6th. The 6th event, it is the Knicks Go Overnight Stakes. It's going for a purse of $175,000, race for 4-year-olds and upwards. We have a field here of... Let's see. We have a field of 12 horses going to the main track, the distance of ground of 1,600 meters or a mile on the Churchill dirt course. My top selection, I'm going to take the 2-horse Masquerade as a top selection. 2-6-3-9 for me in the superfecta. 2-6-3-9 super, top selection to 2-horse Masquerade. 5-year-old horse by Upstart, Al Stall Jr. trains. Joel Rosario gets the mount. Blinkers on. Most recently, they ran the horse in the Alley Dart, Saratoga, mile and 8th on the 4th of August, and he finished second by 2 lengths behind Art Collector, who went on to win the Charlestown Classic, went on to win also the Pegasus earlier this year, and is having a decent, renaissance in his career. This horse just kind of stalked him and couldn't keep up. He ran his heart out, but, nothing bad about that race. Came on with a 97 bar, which is quite strong. Cutting back and trip to a 1-mile trip, which I think he wants to do. I think he's sitting on a very good race, and to start the campaign here, I think this is a good spot for him to win. 2 back in Optional 80 at Churchill, mile 16, 23rd of June. He won by a nose, and he was on the front end all throughout. He was kind of hitting the wall late, but he found a little bit left to get the job done. A very good race, even though I don't think he wants to go 2 turns there. And then 13th of May at Churchill, mile 16th, Optional 80. First off the bench, he finished second by a head. He was gaining a little bit late, just a little bit flat that day, maybe. But he ran his heart out with a 97 buyer. And then the Travers of 2021 at Saratoga over the 1.25 mile. Finishing 6 by 10 1/4 lengths that day. He was wide, he was drifting, he just wasn't getting into it there. And then the Jim Dandy at Saratoga over the mile and the 8th. He finished 3rd by 2 1/4 lengths. He stalked, he had the lead in that all-out race, but then he just got beat by better horses. Essential Quality went on to win the Travers. The second place finisher, decent horse there. And then the Ohio Derby, won by a half a length from a tracking trip. He was a little bit wide, but he got the job done there. And then won Optional 75 here at Churchill on Derby Day 2021, winning by 11 3/4 lengths. He really took off clear. Training well here. Back to a one-turn mile off the bench. At 6 to 1, I think he's loaded. I think the 6 horse here, who is let's see. The 6 horse, who is Zozos, is your second likeliest winner. Definitely using the multi-race. Florent Giroux on this 4-year colt by Munnings. Brad Cox trains him. Most recently, an option lady at the fairgrounds over the mile 70. He won by 2 lengths. They stepped him down in class to get a victory, and he did just that. He stalked. He quickened up nicely. 100 buyer. Best of his career. That was a very good race. Coming back to stakes quality horses, but not the deepest group of horses. I think he get the trip to win. Before that, Louisiana Stakes, he finished 5th by 5 lengths, and he just stalked and never really got going there. And then optional 50, first start since the Derby in December at the fairgrounds. He won by 2 3/4 lengths that day. A little bit wide, but he got the job done. If they show the Zozos of Louisiana Derby last year, or even the victor at Oaklawn, he could definitely win against these horses. I do think he's back to a one-turn mile, which is to his liking. At 5 to 2, I'll use him in the multis. But to recount my selection for the 6 from Churchill, it's Knicks Go Stakes. Let's take the 2-horse Masca Parade. Give kudos to the 6-horse Zozos. 2-6-3-9 Super. 2-6 in your multi race. To the 7th. The 7th race from Churchill, it is the Twin Spires Turf Sprint. It's a Grade 2 event going for a $500,000 purse, race for 3-year-olds and upwards. We have a field here of, let's see, 14 horses entered to go to the Matt Winn turf course, 1,100 meters in distance, or the 5.5 furlongs on that turf course. My top selection, I'm going to go with the 4-horse Big Invasion. Let's go 4-10-3-7 in the superfecta. 4-10-3-7 super. Top selection of 4-horse Big Invasion. This 4-year-old colt by declaration of war. Christophe Clement trains. Joel Rosario gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came in the Silks Run at Gulfstream, 5 furlongs on the 18th of March, and the horse went by 3/4 in length, and he had a dream tracking trip. He was a little bit wide, but he had the turn of foot, and he got the job done. 92 buyer, not the strongest of his career, but it was still a very good race. Closers I've noticed, the turf at Gulfstream going 5 furlongs, it's playing more towards speed as of recently, the last year or two or so, but for him to close up well, I thought that was a good race. He's drawn well here today, should get a good trip, and I think he could win. 2 back in the Buffalo Franklin Simpson Stakes at Keeneland. Not Keeneland, at Kentucky Downs, 6.5 furlongs in the Franklin Simpson Stakes. He finished 3rd by 6 1/4 lengths that day. He was over about at 58 cents to the dollar. He didn't break very well because he was bumped very, very badly out of the gate. He moved a little bit late, but it wasn't anything spectacular. But keep in mind, a lot of horses out of that race were next out winners. And then at the spot, Saratoga on the 17th of July, 5.5 furlongs in the 14th of August, 5.5 furlongs in the Mahoney. He won by 3 lengths, and he stalked that day. Really had the good turn of foot. And he won by open lengths, 3 lengths, very good race, 99 buyer. And then prior to them, the quick call at Saratoga, 5.5 on the Mellon, 17th of July. I saw the race in person. He won by 2 3/4 lengths that day. He didn't break so well, but he settled well after that, a little bit wide. He had the turn of foot, a very good race there. Last year he was pretty perfect. He won the William Walker on this turf course last May from a tracking trip. Came back to run in the Paradise Creek in late May at Belmont over the 7 furlongs on the wider, winning by 3.5 lengths with a 93 buyer. Came back with a terrific race in the quick call and a terrific race in the Mahoney. Should get a good trip on the inside. He's a definite use here. The Derby 6 begins with this race, so I definitely use him there. I think the 10 horse is your second likeliest winner. The 10-horse Arrest Me Red for Wesley Ward and Ira Hughes Jr. Most recently in the Shakertown, he finished 3rd by a half a length, and he was a little bit wide, but was gaining late. Nothing bad about that race on a turf course with given it. Prior to that, in the Brewers Cup Turf Sprint, he finished 8th by 3 1/4 lengths, and he just kind of stalked and hit the wall there, and then had a decent 3rd in the Kentucky Downs Turf Sprint last September, and a very good place in the Jaipur, and won this race last year from a tracking trip. From wide poster, he's probably going to get to the front end, and it wouldn't surprise me if he steals it here at 4-1. I'll use him on the ticket. And the 3-horse Evan Singh. I like the win in the Colonel Power last time out the fairgrounds, and some of the races last year where he's closing up from nowhere weren't bad at all. The closers haven't been as good on this turf course, but it wouldn't surprise me. Pick 6, use him there. But to recount my selection for the 7 from Churchill, it's Twin Spires Turf Sprint. Let's take the 4-horse Big Invasion. Give kudos to the 10-horse Arrest Me Red and the 3-horse Evan Singh. 4-10-3-7 super. 4-10-3 in the multi race. Let's get to the 8th now. The 8th race from Churchill, it is the Pat Day Mile. It's a Grade 2 event going for a $500,000 purse, race for 3-year-olds here. A full field of 14 horses are entered to go the distance of ground of 1,600 meters or a mile on the main track. My top selection here in the Pat Day, I'm going to go with the 7-horse Fort Bragg. I'm going to go 7-12-9-5 in the superfecta. 7-12-9-5 super. Top selection 7-horse Fort Bragg. This 3-year-old colt by Tappet. Tim Yakteen trains. Joel Rosario gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came in the Florida Derby at Gulfstream, mile and the eighth on the 1st of April. He was breaking from post 10 of 12 that day, and, he left going out of the gate to set the pace, and he just couldn't keep up. He finished fifth by 9.5 lengths, didn't also break so well, which cost him stupidly wide. It just wasn't his day. I don't think he wants to go two turns. I think he wants to go one turn. He's cutting back to a one turn mile, which I think is the right thing for this horse, and I think he's sitting on a good race to get the job done. Before then, the San Felipe at San Antonio, mile 16th on the 4th of March, he finished fifth by 5.5 lengths that day, and he just kind of stalked. He wanted to go. Juan Hernandez didn't let him go, which I think cost him. He just kind of hit the wall there. It wasn't the day to win. And then prior to then, in the Los Futurity at Los Alamitos, mile 16th on the 17th of December, he finished third by 7.5 lengths that day. Practical Move really ran terrific race. This horse had to check a few times. It was drifting, was wide. He did not want any bit of that mile 16th with that very long stretch at Los Alamitos. And then before that, Santina going a mile 16th, he won, but he was setting pedestrian fractions. He won by 3/4 length, and he was drifting that day, kind of hitting the wall late, but he still had enough left in the tank to win. Being Reincarnate, he was running later in the day in the Derby, and also was the next start winner there. And then prior to that, he ran Santino 1 mile in the main special weight, which he won by 1/4 lengths. And again, he just kind of bumped in, lugged in, which cost the winner that day, Practical Move. Actually, this horse beat, who got beat by him again in the Los Alpha Charity. They placed Practical Move up and disqualified this one. What can you do? It just couldn't keep a straight course. But I think he wants to go back to a one-turn mile. He's going to get it today, or he's debuting back to a one-turn mile. I think that's what he wants to do. At 9-2, I'm going to use him. Pick 5 scenario. I'm not going to play it, but I can understand if you're going to single Fort Bragg. But if you play the pick 5, the 12 horse Gun Pilot, I would use also. This 3-0 followed by Gun Runner. Steve Asmussen trains. Tyler Gaffleone gets the mount. Most recently in the Hot Springs over the mile at Oaklawn, he finished second by a length that day, and he sat back early, a little bit wide, but he was gaining that day. Not a bad race. I think he's another horse going, one turn mile. Really, I can't stress that enough. He really wants to do that. 2 back in the Rebel, he wasn't getting the mile 16th. He finished 7th by 13.25 lengths that day and just had nothing. Maybe the sloppy track had something to do with it. He just didn't show up there. And then Optional 88 at Oaklawn over the mile. He won by 2 lengths, and from a tracking trip, he got through late. It was a very nice race after all said and done. Cutting back and trip, 5-1. He's a very next likely winner. I would use him on the ticket. But to recap my selection for the 8th now from Churchill, it is the Pate Mile. We're going to take the 7 horse Fort Bragg. Give kudos to the 12 horse Gun Pilot. 7-12 at 9-5 Super. 7-12 in your multi race. To the 9th. The 9th race, it is the American Turf. It's grade 2 event going for a $500,000 purse. Race for 3-year-olds here. We have a field of, a field of 16 horses entered. 15 and 16 are also eligible, so only 14 could go. The distance of ground is 1,700 meters, or a mile 16th on the Matt Winn Turf course. My top selection here in the American Turf, I'm going to go take the number 11 horse, Carl Spackler. Let's go 11-1-4-8 in the superfecta. 11-1-4-8 super. Top selection, 11 horse, Carl Spackler. 3-year quote by Lupe de Vega. Chad Brown trains. Jose Ortiz gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came the 25th of February at Gulfstream. A mile in the main special weight for 70K. He won by 8.25 lengths that day. He was a little bit wide from a wide post row, but he got over to get good position. When he got to the front and he quickened up, he was under the drive, but really got the job done. 20 cents of the dollar. Coming home with a 92 buyer. Nothing bad about that race. He's bred for the mile 16th through and through. He's going to have to overcome a wide poster here today, but I think he has a forwardly pace to really run that good race. He's a wise guy horse in this pick 4. I'm going to play 2 tickets. I'm going to single him on one, and the other one I'm going to go just a little bit deeper. But, I think he has a very strong future ahead in this mile division. 2 back, he ran 21st January at Gulfstream, mile 16th in main special weight. He finished second by a head that day, and he just kind of stalked, a little bumping around that day. He had the lead. The winner came back to him to get the job done, who was running back this one today. Who's his name? I can't remember his name right now, but he had the jump on him. But this horse, he ran his heart out that day, behind what was his name now? Fantastic again, was that him? He ran, he ran his heart out there. Refreshing here, backed off the bench, winners for the first time, sitting forwardly paced, which I think he will from wide post to get good position. He's going to leave. I think he's sitting on that very good run. His buyers are definitely up to scratch. Even with that defeat on debut, that buyer could beat these horses. I'm going to use him on the ticket. I think your second likeliest winner, we have to go to the rail horse, to the one horse Major Dude for Tom Pletcher and A-Rod Ortiz Jr. Most recently in the Jeff Ruby Stakes, he finished second by 5 1/4 lengths behind two fills that day. He just stalked all the way around the race course. He couldn't catch two fills, but he ran his heart out. You know, this is the kind of horse I think he wants to go in mile quarter, something like the Belmont Derby, even the Saratoga Derby over the mile 3/16. I think that's his probably preferred target. But he ran his heart out on the Jeff Ruby. Prior to the Kitten's Joy at Gulfstream, mile 16th in the 4th of February, he won by 1.5 lengths. And again, coming from mid-pack, he was drifting that day, but he got the job done. And then the Diana Beach, he finished second by 2 1/4 lengths that day. He was a little bit wide, but again, gaining. His only subpar race was where he had a stupidly wide poster in the Brews Cup Juvenile Turf. But refreshing here off some decent runs, strong bars as of recently, forwardly paced, which I think is the ideal thing for this turf course. It wouldn't surprise me. I'm going to use him on that pick 4 ticket also. But to recap my selections now for the 9th race from Churchill, it is the American Turf. As a top selection, we'll take the 11 horse Carl Spackler. Give kudos to the 1 horse Major Dude. 11-1-4-8 Super. 11-1 to begin off this late pick 4. Let's get to the 10th. The 10th race from Churchill, it is the Churchill Downs Stakes. It's a Grade 1 event going for a $750,000 purse. Race for 4-year-olds and upwards. We have a field here of, let's see, field of 11 horses going to the main track. The distance of ground of 1,400 meters or 7 furlongs on that main track. My top selection, I love a price here, the 4 horse Hoist de Gold. I'm going to go 4-7-5-10 in the superfecta. 4-7-5-10 super, top selection to 4 horse Hoist the Gold. This 4-year-old colt by Mineshaft. Dallas Stewart trains. Luis Saez gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came in the Commonwealth at Keeneland. 7 furlongs on the 8th of April, and he finished second by a neck that day at 10-1. He was stupidly wide, but he sat back early after a very strong pace in front of him. He really closed up well late. The winner had the jump on him late, but he ran the heart out behind here, Musing. Refreshing here, seeing a lot stronger pace in this one. Very good poster. I think this horse could really get the job done and run a good race. The buyers aren't bad at all. 2 back in the Mineshaft over the mile 16th at the Fairgrounds, 18th of February. He doesn't want to go 2 turns, though. He finished 4th by 6 1/4 lengths that day. He set the pace, not the world's strongest pace, and then he just kind of hit the wall. Nothing, just wasn't keeping up. It wasn't his day to win there. And then the Malibu at Santa Anita, 7 furlongs, 26th of December. He finished 3rd by 5 lengths that day. He was a little bit wide, but he had a decent turn of foot behind Forbidden Kingdom and Tabia. Nothing bad about that run. And then at Mahoning, 6 furlongs in the Steel Valley Sprint. He finished 4th by 2 1/4 lengths that day. Again, he's stupidly wide. He had a decent turn of foot. If the race was 7, he would have really made the race interesting late. And then behind Goodnight in the Perryville at Keeneland over the 7, he finished second by 3 3/4 lengths that day. Again, he really was closing up well late. He hasn't won in a minute, but he's always run these good races, training well since the last run. I have a very strong chance of him getting Luis Saez up at 30-1. Let's take it here today. I also think your second likeliest winner is the 7 horse Cody's Wish. 5-year-old horse by Curlin. Belmont trains. Junior Alvarado gets the mount. Most recently, the Brews Cup Dirt Mile at Keeneland over the mile. He won by ahead that day, closing up from nowhere, seeing a strong pace in front. He got there in nick of time. A very good run. He's back to a 1-turn race, which I think is his preferred surface. He could sit close. He could come from a little bit behind. He's got a versatile type. I think he's, like I said, sitting on that good run. He also, his last 4 are triple-digit buyers, not bad at all. Came back with a 106 last time out. Before that, he ran the race of his life, coming back with a 112 buyer in the Forego at Saratoga. 7 furlongs, 27th of August. He won by 1 1/4 lengths that day, and very rambunctious that day. Coming out of the gate, stupidly wide, but he kept coming, beating Jackie's Warrior home. That was a very exciting run for him there. And then the Hanshin here at Churchill of the mile, he won by a neck, he stalked, he got the lead, and he really took off clear with a 102 buyer. And then last year on Belmont Stakes Day over here in New York at Belmont in the Westchester on a stupidly sloppy track, came home with a 104 buyer in victory, winning by 5 lengths. And he basically walked in home. A very, very good run. He loves the 1 turn. He runs his best races out of it. Coming here today, 4-5. I know he's a low price, but he's also a very likely winner. We'll definitely use him in this slate pick 4. But to recount my selection for the 10th from Churchill, it is the Churchill Downs Stakes. Let's take as a top selection the 4 horse Hoist de Gold. Give kudos to the 7 horse here, Cody's Wish. 4-7-5-10 super. 4-7 in your multi-race. Let's get to race number 11. The featured turf event of the weekend from Churchill. It's race number 11. It is the Old Forester Turf Classic. It's a Grade 1 event going for a $1 million purse race for 4-year-olds and upwards. We have a field here of 10 horses heading to the Matwin Turf Course, the distance of ground of 1,800 meters, or a mile and 1/8 on the Matwin Turf Course. Portable rails, of course, are down this weekend, or today. My top selection, I'm going to take the 3-horse Wolfie Dagenost. I'm going to go 3, 5, 8, 10 in the superfecta. 3, 5, 8, 10 super, top selection 3-horse, Wolfie Dagenost. This 5-year-old gelding by Go Zapper. Jonathan Thomas trains John Velasquez, who's having a very good week at Churchill. Gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came 25th of March at Turfway, a mile and 1/8 in the Kentucky Cup Classic, and the horse won by 2 1/4 lengths. Of course, he had everything his own way on the front end, but he stalked early on. He got to the front. The turn of foot he had late was very nicely done, and he went away with it. A very good run. He likes running on the synthetic. He's 3 for 3 on it now between Gulfstream and Turfway, but nothing bad about that race. The key factor to him running good lately has been the gelding. Reported as a gelding on the 21st of July of 2022. Ever since then, he's run these terrific races. Okay, less quality horses at Colonial, mile and 1/8 or mile 16th in the Bird Allen. He won by 3 on the front end, running a terrific race. Came back to run in the Bucks County at Parks over the mile and 1/8 on the dirt off a turf race. He finished third by 8 lengths and just kind of hit the wall there, but came back to run in a handicap at Gulfstream on Pegasus Day on the Tapete over the mile 70. Went by 1 1/4 lengths, stalking an average pace. He really took off clear and came back with a terrific run, earning a career best 101 buyer in the Kentucky Cup Classic. If you noticed, the buyers have been showing up a little higher than usual at Turfway over the winter, but coming here today, he has hidden form on turf. He should be more settled, staying forwardly paced, which has been the key for this turf course since they put it in last year. I think a 10-1, he's sitting on a very good race. He's a very likely winner. For the pick 4, I'm going to use the 5-horse Up to the Mark. 4-year-old filly by Not This, or excuse me, 4-year-old colt by Not This Time. Todd Pletcher trains. Ira Ortiz Jr. gets the mount. Most recently, they ran the horse in the Maker's Mark Mile at Keeneland, 1 mile on the 14th of April. It was his first time against stakes quality horses, and it was proper Grade 1 quality horses. He finished third by 4 3/4 lengths that day. He sat back early after they walked the dog on the front end. He was gaining late, but just a little bit too late. He got beat by a Breeders' Cup winner and a decent horse who finished in front of him, but there was nothing bad about that race. He probably will see a little bit of a stronger pace. I like to see him a little bit closer, but I think he's sitting on a very good run, and he could run another very good race here today. 2 back in Option 6-2 at Gulfstream, mile 16th, 4th of March. He won by 1 1/4 lengths that day, and he sat back early, a little bit wide, on nearly, it says 10 path in the racing form. I would say about the 8th pass if you watched replay, but the turn of foot he had was quite nicely done. Coming on with a 93 buyer, 80 cents to the dollar, a very good run from there. And then 20th of January, Gulfstream on Pegasus Day, 1 mile on Option 25, winning by 4 lengths that day. Come from mid-pack, a little bit wide, but he took off clear. Since coming to the green stuff, he's become a lot better horse. Coming here, I'm going to give him a shot at 4-1 on the ticket. The 8-horse Santon, he likes this turf course. Well, he's very weirdly since he started running on it, but he won this race quite nicely by neck last year. Came back to run a disappointing race in the Manhattan, and then won the Arlington Million. But since the Million, he just hasn't really showed up, and his bars have been going backwards. Is he going backwards? That's my biggest question. If you have the extra payroll, I would use him in this race, but the buyers going backwards, is a head scratch with me. The other 2 horses have been really improving into this race, which I think you want to see, so I'll use them on my ticket. But to recap my selection now for the 11th from Churchill, it is the Old Forester Bourbon Turf Classic. As a top selection, we're going to take the 3-horse Wolfie Dagenost. Give kudos to the 5-horse Up to the Mark. 3, 5, 8, 10 super. Let's go 3, 5 in the pick 4. Let's get to the big 12th race now from Churchill. The feature 12th race, the big one from Churchill, it is the Kentucky Derby. It's a Grade 1 event going for a $3 million purse. Races for 3-year-olds here. Originally, we have 23 horses entered, 3 also eligibles, 20 in the main body of the group, but we have quite a few scratches. We'll get to that in a second, but they're going the distance of ground of 2,000 meters or a mile and a quarter on the Churchill main track. Like I said, we have quite a few scratches. Let's get to it right now. We're going to take out the 10-horse Practical Move. He spiked a fever Thursday. He's going to be out of it. We're also going to take out the 19-horse Lord Miles, and we're also going to take out the 20-horse Contour. So that means 21, 22, 23 will draw in, and I don't know if I've ever seen a 23 horse in an American horse race, so that's going to be quite cool. But with that being said, I think it's still a very good Derby. As a top selection here, I'm going to go take the number 15 horse Forte. I'm going to go give you my top five basically in exact order. Let's play a super high five straight, see what happens. But my top five would be 15, 1, 5, 17, 3. So that was 15, 1, 5, 17, 3. My top selection is the 15 horse here, Forte, this 3-year-old colt by Violence. Top Fletcher trains this one. Iridities Jr. gets the mount, trying to become the third Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner to win the Derby. Most recently, they ran the horse in the Florida Derby at Gulfstream, a mile and an eighth on the 1st of April, and he won by a length that day. He was breaking from post 11 of 12, which is very, very hard to do at Gulfstream. You have to be a champion, and he did that, but he had to be used a lot that day. He tried to get over. He was stupidly wide around the first turn, even stupidly wide around the second turn, but he slowly dug in, and he got the job done. It wasn't the world's strongest Florida Derby, but he got the job done at 30 cents a dollar. You know, the kind of horses that win from that outside poster are Gun Runner. He won from like post 10 or 11. Barbara won from post 10, and Big Brown won from post 12 of 12 in the Florida Derby about 15 years ago. So, you know, that's a good sign for him. You know, the race, you know, he looked a little tired that day, but coming to this race, he looks a lot better. Everybody says he's peaking at the right time. He's training well. I think he's sitting on the race of his life. I think also with the pace of this race, I think he's going to get a good trip. He's not going to be coming from mid-pack, you know, from dead closer, but he's not going to be with the pace setters. I think he's just going to sit, you know, 8th, 9th. I would like to see him there and then slowly get the good run. You know, I think in the 15 hole, I think that's a good post draw for him. Two back in the Fountain of Youth at Gulfstream, mile 16th, 4th of March. I thought he ran a terrific race. He won by 4 1/4 lengths that day. He sat back early, slowly moved his way up, and he went away with it. A 98 buyer, a great run there, and with that short stretch for him to win by that much, nothing bad about that run. And then prior to that, in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Keeneland, mile 16th, 4th of November, he won by 1 3/4 lengths that day, and he sat mid-pack most of the race. He went up and circled the field. He quickened up, and went away with it. A very good run there. He likes Keeneland because he won the Breeders' Futurity before that over the mile 16th on the 8th of October. Winning by a neck, coming from mid-pack that day. A little bit of, you know, brushing that day, but he got there in nick of time. A very good run. And then he won the hopeful on an absolutely downpour on closing day at Saratoga last season. He won by 3 lengths, coming from, you know, a very bumpy trip that day, but he took off clear again, circling the field. He's done everything right, other than the Sanford, where I just thought he was a little bit flat that day. But coming here, training well, at 3-1, I think he's very loaded. I think our second likely winner is the one-horse Hit Show. He's another horse. I thought he ran a very good sneaky race in the Wood. This is a 3-year-old colt by Candy Ride. Brad Cox trains one. Manny Franco gets the mount. A horse bred for the mile and a quarter with the city Candy Ride and the Tap It on the dam side. You know, I'm gonna have to overcome the one hole, but I don't think it's as bad as it was years ago with the auxiliary gate, and it'll be kind of cool for a one hole to win again. I think the last one was Ferdinand in 1986 or something like that. But Hit Show, he ran in the Wood Memorial at Aqueduct, mile and eighth on the 8th of April, and he finished second by nose. He was breaking 12 of 12 at Aqueduct, going a mile and eighth. You don't see a lot of mile and eighth races at Aqueduct with more than like 8 horses, 9 horses. A 12 horse field. He was stupidly wide throughout that day. Stalked a bit of a, you know, he was coming from mid-pack, a bit of a slow pace, but he slowly moved his way up. He had a great turn of foot. He just missed late, and Lord Miles was coming out on him a little bit, but he ran his heart out. Gonna come to an inside post draw. He's gonna have 19 other horses coming over on him on the rail. But if Manny could get a good clear trip, I think he could win here today. The weathers before that, okay, facing lesser quality horses at Aqueduct over the mile and eighth. I thought he ran a terrific race on the 11th of February. He won by 5 1/4 lengths that day. He didn't break so well, but he settled well into that. He, you know, he got to the front end, he quickened up, and he kept going. A very good run after all sudden and then that day. And then the 17th of December at Oaklawn, 1 mile and optional 100. He won by 3 1/4 lengths that day. Again, he was stupidly wide, but the turn of foot he had late, that was a very good race. You know, the only subpar race he's had actually came on this track here in the fall on the 26th of November. Mile 16th and optional 100. He finished 4th by 7 1/4 lengths that day. He sat back early. He moved a little bit late, but he just was a little lackadaisical that day. But ever since then, he's really put on a better performance. His most recent workout, 5 furlongs, 59.3, the fourth best workout, 54, and a 5/8 mile drill and 101 flat, breezing the 18th best out, 33. I think he's really sitting on that good race. Coming here today off of a very good wood, a secretly good wood at 30-1. I really like him a lot. He's going to get probably a nice win place from me also. I think his third likeliest winner is the 5-horse Tapit Trice. This 3-year-old colt by Tapit. Tom Pletcher trains this one. Luis Saez gets the mount. Most recently in the Bluegrass at Keeneland, a mile 8th on the 8th of April. He won by a neck that day, and he sat back early. He slowly moved his way up and had to be used a lot that day, but he got a good, gritty performance beating Verify that day, who would just, I thought he just kind of hit the wall that day. Wasn't getting the trip. This horse stayed the trip well and ran his heart out. Coming home with a 99 buyer. Prior to that, I thought he ran a terrific race at Tampa. Mile 16th in the Tampa Derby. He won by 2, and he circled the field that day. He sat back early, almost last early on, but, he didn't look like a winner most of the race, but he kept coming, and he got the job done. A very good performance there. Before that, he ran an option 5 at Gold 1 mile on the 4th of February, and he won by 8, and he stalked that day a little bit wide, but he took off clear. He is the most expensive purchase out of anybody in this race. They bought him for 1.3 at the September 2021 Keeneland sale, so they think highly of him. Tapit's waiting for that Kentucky Derby. I think this is his best chance in quite a few years. He's also another horse. He's training very well since the last race. He has a very good post draw, and see a good trip. Watch out for him late at 5-1. It'd be good for Luis Saez to get some redemption from that 2019 fiasco in the Derby. I think your third likeliest winner, or where are we now? Your fourth likeliest winner is the Japanese Invader, the number 17 horse, Derma Shotaki. This 3-year-old colt by Mind Your Biscuits. Christophe Lemaitre gets the mount. Most recently in the UAE Derby at Maidan, a mile 3/16, 25th of March. He won by 5.5 lengths that day, and he basically stalked. Very speed favoring track, but when he got the turn of foot, he took off clear. A very good race, and he had a lot left in the tank. He's another horse, I think as the distances get longer, he should get better. I think from a wide poster shouldn't be a problem. I think he could get over well, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's with the leading pair early on. I think that's going to be his best chance to win. Since coming to the States, everybody says he's been training well. His workout patterns haven't been half bad. Watching the work show, nothing bad about him. Before then, the Saudi Derby at King Abdulaziz racecourse in Saudi, he finished third by 2 3/4 lengths that day. He just kind of stalked. He was a little bit flat that day. Might have needed the run off the bench, and also over a trip he probably didn't like. He wants to go 1.25 miles, I think. He ran his heart out there, and then in a listed stakes at Kawasaki over the mile in Japan in December, he won by a head that day, and he sat back early, but he had the turn of foot late. A very, very good race. His races in Japan aren't half bad. He's training well. I'll give him a shot here on the ticket. And I also think your fifth likeliest winner, a horse we're definitely going to use in the high fives and the multi-race wagers, would be the 3-horse Two Phils. 3-year-old colt by Hardspun. Larry Ravelli trains. Jared Loveberry gets the mount. Most recently in the Jeff Ruby Stakes Spiral at Turfway over the mile and 8th on the Tapeta synthetic track. He won by 5.25 lengths that day, and he sat back early, but the turn of foot he had, he ran one of the strongest, I think he has the highest buyer of anybody in this race. Came home with a 101 buyer. That was a very good performance, but everybody's saying, buyer, well, first things first, the buyers I've noticed over the winter at Turfway have been coming up a little higher than I've noticed usually, so that could be something. But a lot of people have been saying synthetic form to the dirt. He has run on dirt and has run decently. It wasn't the world's toughest Spiral or Jeff Ruby Stakes, but he still ran a terrific race here. He's also training well at Hawthorne. Kind of good for Chicago to win a Derby here. Before that, in the Risen Star at the Fairgrounds, mile 8th, the 18th of February, he finished third by 2 3/4 lengths that day. He was just very wide, breaking 10 of 14. He never got good position, and he just couldn't keep up. I do think the 3 holes to his advantage today. He should save a lot of ground. He'll be with them, I think, early on. I think he could, get the job done. Before that, in the comp at the Fairgrounds over the mile 16th, he finished second by 2.5 lengths that day. He was a little bit wide. He just couldn't catch instant call if you had the jump on him and set some pedestrian fractions. But this horse, he ran his heart out there. And then here in the Street Sense in October, over the mile 16th on the slop, winning by 5 1/4 from a not a best beginning, a little bit wide, but from a tracking trip, he got the job done. He's really improved since the Breeders' Futurity, where he had a very stupidly wide post draw. I think, like I said, he likes going to the inside of horses. He's finally going to get that trip today, and I think at 12 to 1, he has a live chance of hitting the board, if not even winning. I'm going to use him in that late pick 4 here. But we talked about my top 5 here. We're going to talk about the other horses right now. We already talked about Hit Show, the one horse. Let's talk about the two horse verifying. The 3-year colt by Justified. Broadcox trains. Tyler Gaffleon gets the mount. I just don't think he wants the 1.25 mile. He couldn't keep up in the blue red stalking, a little bit of a slow pace that day. He's going to see a lot of horses coming over on him. I think he's going to get jostled around, and he's the kind of horse I would probably cut him back in next start to something like the Woody Stevens. He's just not a use for me. We talked about the 3-horse 2 fills, the 4-horse Confidence Game. The Rebel, he won quite nicely, and he finished third in the Lecomte that day, where he just got beat by a little better horses on the day. He's coming into a long break here, which is quite unusual for the Derby in the point system era. But, he ran a terrific race in the Rebel. He's bred for the trip. He's the kind of horse, I don't think he's good enough to win. He could definitely hit the supers and the trifecta and under to the super high 5. I would use him there. To win, it would be a long stretch, but he's unusual here. And I also like the 1 mile workout 2 bag. It's kind of unusual in this day and age. We talked about the 5-horse Tapit Trice. The 6-horse King's Baron, I thought he had everything his own way in the Louisiana Derby, where he set very pedestrian fractions, almost 115 to 3/4 that day. He kept going down clear, but I just think that's because he had everything his own way. I think he's a very talented horse, but I think he's going to see a lot more pace pressure today, and I think that's going to be something that might be his undoing. He won before that at Tampa quite nicely going away, and broke the maiden at Gulfstream before that. He's training well, but I just think he's going to have a lot of pace pressure, which could be to his detriment here. If he wins, it wouldn't surprise me. I tell you the truth, I would probably have him, right under 2 fills. I would have him 6. I definitely would use him in the trifectas and exactas there. But he's going to have a lot of more challenge than he had last time out. The 7-horse Reincarnate here, another horse I think I would cut him back and trip. The 1.25 mile around 2 turns just might not be to his liking here. He won the Sham quite nicely, but I just don't think the 2 turns is a head scratcher with me. I just don't think he's going to get it. Cut him back and trip. Wait for the King's Bishop or something like that. The 8-horse Maj here. I thought he had a really good closing trip late. He nearly won the Florida Derby at 9-2. He didn't break so well. Was wide, but he closed up well. But he's another horse I think he's going to be facing a little bit too tough competition here today. And also, he doesn't break so well. He didn't break so well in the Fountain of Youth, which cost him. I think they're setting their heights a little bit too high here. The 9-horse Skinner, he gained ground in the Santa Anita Derby at Santa Anita, where he ran an okay third with a high buyer of 99. And had a decent, an okay third in the San Felipe. He gained ground and then kind of flattened out, and then broke the main at Santa Anita, closing up from nowhere. He's a bit of a closer here. Does he want to get the 1.25 mile? That's going to be the big question here. 20-1. I'll use him underneath in these supers and high 5s. But can John Sheriffs have another Giacomo? I don't think so, but we never know. The 10-horse Practical Move is withdrawn. The 11-horse Disarm. He's making his quite a few starts now in the last 6 weeks. He's making a 3rd start now, going to a 1.25 mile in Derby. It's going to be the biggest test. He got the 3rd in Lexington. He was a little bit wide. He got 3rd to get the points. I don't know if they were really trying that day. Before then, Louisiana Derby, he was gaining ground off of a very pedestrian pace that day. Nothing bad about that race. And then before that, at Oaklawn, he finished 2nd by 4 lengths. He didn't break so well. The winner was just had the jump on him. Probably need the race first start since August. He's definitely improved with this year, but he might see a very tired horse since that last race. And 30 starts in 6 weeks. That's going to be not to his liking here. The odds are against him here at 30-1. I think he's a strong horse as the season goes on, but I just don't think right now I could back him in this race. The 12-horse Jace's Road, he stalked a pace in Louisiana Derby that was very pedestrian. He just couldn't keep up that day. He couldn't keep up in the Southwest. It wasn't, he had everything his own way in the Gun Runner, and then here in the Street Sense last year, he never really got going. Wouldn't surprise me if he's with the pace setters early on, but I just don't think he's going to get them out of quarter. I think there's slightly better horses than him. The 13 horse Sun Thunder, 50 to 1 here. Do I think you're going to get 50 to 1 on post time? No, I don't. I think with everybody thinking about Rich Strike last year going off at 84 to 1 or something like that, or whatever he was at post, I think a lot of these 50 to 1 horses are going to go bet down to 30 to 1, 20 to 1. And I think this horse might be one of those. I like the place in the Risen Star 3 back. Came back to run Louisiana Derby where he ran a disappointing fifth, but he had a little traffic that day, and then he moved a little bit in the Bluegrass. But another horse, he's making his third start in 6 weeks of two very tough races. 2 weeks between the Louisiana Derby and Bluegrass. He could get a place here, but he's gonna have to run the best race of his life. He's getting blinkers on also to keep him more forward, but and he is also training well. But I don't think you're gonna get 50 to 1 on him. But the same with Disarm. The quick turnaround is very quick, alarming for me. The 14 horse Angel of Empire for Brad Cox and Flavian Pratt. I like the victory in the Arkansas Derby and in the Risen Star, especially the Risen Star. We really closed up from nowhere that day. Coming here, he's really improved as the season goes on, trying to become the first PA bred to win the Derby since I believe Smarty Jones actually placed in the Smarty Jones Stakes on New Year's Day at Oaklawn. He's run decently. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins here today, but I think he's going to have a lot more trouble from the outside post draw. And from where he's coming from, I think it's not to his for his best. With all these horses, I think he's going to have a lot of traffic trouble. It wouldn't surprise me. Maybe I would put him underneath who was I talking about here earlier on, King's Baron. I would put him underneath there, just for a seventh on my ticket. We already talked about Forte, the 6 horse Raise Kane. I just don't think he's gonna get the 2-turn trip. He wants to go a mile around a 1 turn like he did in the Gotham, where he really closed up well. Last time on the Bluegrass, he had a little bit of a trouble trip that day, but he's gonna have to have everything his right way, coming from a deep closer here. His race here as a debut, he just didn't show up there. That was over 6.5. He's gonna have to really run a terrific race. I don't think he can keep up with these horses. Dermot Shiitake, we talked about. The 18 horse Rocky Can. I loved him going when he won the Holy Bull. Then he ran a disappointing race in the Fountain of Youth, and then kind of went a little backwards in the Arkansas Derby. He was gaining a little bit that day, but then kind of flattened out before the wire. He's getting blinkers on. It wouldn't surprise me if Junior leaves out of the gate and tries to get good position, but he's kind of horse. I think he's going to go about 10 wide around the first turn. But if the Holy Bull run shows up, or even that race here in November shows up, I wouldn't be surprised if he runs a good race. He actually won around here in October on the slop around breaking from post 10 of 12, where he really ran a terrific race. I would put him underneath who was I talking about? Angel of Empire. He'd be 8th on the ticket, shall I say. But he's gonna have to run a very good race from the 18 hole in this race. The 19 horse and 20 horse Lord Miles and Contour respectively are withdrawn. So let's get to the also eligibles. The 21 horse Cyclone Mischief. He's gonna have to overcome a wide poster here today. Another horse that he just hasn't really run that terrific race. Okay in the Florida Derby, okay in the Fountain of Youth, where he set very pedestrian fractions, but couldn't keep up. And then the Holy Bull, he just really didn't show up there, but and didn't show up in the Kentucky Jockey Club here. He broke the maiden at Keelan quite nicely, but he's gonna have to really run a good race against these horses. I don't see it happening. The 22 horse Mandarin Hero, I thought his race in the Santa Anita Derby wasn't bad at all. He finished second by a nose, and he was really fighting back that day. A good run for him, earning 100 buyer. He's making a massive step up in class, going to overcome a wide post draw. But if there's a deep closer winning, it could be. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the job done here. Should definitely get the trip. 23 horse King Russell here. Another deep closer. Gonna have to probably overcome a wide poster now, but he hasn't really run a very quick race. His bar is a little bit too slow for these horses. He is training well, but I can't see him winning this race. But with that being said, that's my thoughts on all these horses in the Derby. Let's recap my selections now for the Kentucky Derby 149, the 12th race from Churchill. My top selection here, we're gonna go take the number 15 horse Forte. We'll go 15, 1, 5, 17, 3 in the super high five. Let's go over that again. 15, 1, 5, 17, 3 super high five. We're gonna do an exacta box here, $10. 15, 1 here. We're gonna definitely do a nice win place on Hit Show. I think he has at 30 to 1. He has a strong chance. But will you get 30 to 1 at post? I don't think so. I think he's going to low because of that rich strike factor from last year with all these long shots are going to get bet into the ground, which I hope that happens. Maybe they could get Forte up in price also. I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't surprise me if Forte goes off as around 4 to 1 with all those horses. It's 3 to 1 in the morning line, but I think you'll get 4 to 1 at post. But like I said, 15, 1, 5, 17, 3. We're going to use all 5 of them in the superfecta here. I might play a small, superfecta ticket here where I'll probably add King's Baron to the bottom end, Angel of Empire, the 13 horse Sun Thunder, and also adding on the 18 horse Rocket Can. But like I said, I think your likeliest winner is Forte. Hit Show at a bit of a price, and wouldn't be surprised Tapit Trice wins. But with that being said, good luck to all. Remember to go check out my 2000 Guineas preview from Newmarket, and join me in 2 weeks in Baltimore at Pimlico. It's going to be very exciting Preakness, I think. So good luck to all. Follow me on Twitter at Horse Racing Get 5 for more selections for race courses around the world. Good luck, everybody.